So, do tell, what are you noticing? What are you noticing this week on the topic of wonder?
Oh, yeah, this is a little one. But um, I had this injury on my finger, and it was right where the finger bends. So, it's kind of was red and you know what? It's healed. And I thought, wow, how did that happen? I had nothing to do with it, right?
Yes.
I had nothing to do with this, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I put a Band-Aid on once and a little cream, but basically, somehow the body just figured this all out and healed.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's really amazing.
It is really amazing.
Yes. So
We think we're in charge, don't we?
we are not.
We're not in charge,
No.
not of most things. Thank you,
Mm,
Mickey.
okay.
That's great. Let's see, Karen, you were going to say something.
Yeah, so this week, what really came to focus for me with wonder was thinking about just how amazing humans are in terms of what they can create. So, I was thinking a lot about like architects and engineers getting together and designing like massive buildings. Like how to me that is just amazing. And I can't even conceive of how people do that. And I listen to like a lot of live music and just seeing people together making music and that whole like, idea of playing music, like just individually, but then with a group and all the communication that has to go into it. And it was just,
Like, wow.
and it's beautiful, it's like perfect and beautiful and just, it's just amazing to me. And yeah, so things like that, like who came up with like math, calculus and algebra and, trigonometry and like all of this amazing language, like, it's just, and the fact that I believe that a lot of that creativity, like yeah, it's learning and practicing and having, a certain mind, but I do believe that there's a connection to a higher power, higher energy, higher, you know, whatever it is that works with people like that, like they're just tapping into something different and the
Mhm.
wonder of that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's something is imagined that doesn't exist, and then it's made. That's truly astonishing. I want to riff a little on the building thing. I mean, I, I've always wondered, like, how do engineers? I mean, it must take a certain kind of courage to, design this building that's how many stories high and that is not going to just like crumble or fall over. They must have such faith in their measurements and their understanding of building materials. And I know a guy who's like a soil engineer. Who even knew there was such a thing? But in order to erect these buildings, you have to have somebody who understands what's in the ground enough to know, whether they're going to stand up and how high you can build and all these sorts of things. I never knew even existed. But it's just a wonder to me, um, that somebody, usually it's a group of people, design these amazing structures and that they stand up as well as they do. I mean, if one fails, it's a very rare thing in the news. It's not at all common. So thank you.
I think this week, I've been noticing the contrasts between things that bring up wonder because of the beauty in them and things that seem to get in the way of me being able to wonder,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense.
And I find a pull now to want to be in more wonder, which makes me less available for my life,
Mm. That
which which
is,
is kind of a contradiction because aren't we supposed to be wondering in our lives?
yeah, isn't wonder your life in some
Right.
certain sense?
It
Yeah,
is. I wonder about that
yeah, yeah,
because, if I'm reading a wonderful book like The Secret Garden, it brings wonder truly to life. And then you emulate that in nature and you go out and you're looking. But then when you have constraints that come up from day to day life that are so pressuring or so difficult to cope with, there's a wonder in that too, but it feels like a different definition of wonder.
yeah.
Doesn't seem
It's a different
positive.
state of mind that it arouses in you, and it's not wonder, you know? It's worry, it's figuring out, it's all these other sorts of things kind of
Right. So I
come up to
wonder
you.
about that.
Hmm.
That's not wonder, or is that wonder?
No, usually it's not. Usually it's not
Okay.
wonder. Yeah.
That's really good to know.
And that doesn't make them bad because they're not wonder, you know? But when you notice your states of mind, you have a greater margin of choice. When you're completely kind of oblivious to the way that states of mind change inside of you and come up and in response to different situations, you kind of don't have a lot of freedom with respect to them. They just happen. You just react. But as you kind of notice your states of mind, like whether you're in wonder or you're not, there's a margin of choice that maybe you could wonder in that situation.
Hmm.
And you start to notice that certain states of mind feel good, certain states of mind don't. Though they might not feel bad in any gross way, but um, there's a burden to them. There's a kind of a burden. Some feel very burdened and not so happy, and others feel happy. I chose wonder because it's a pretty guaranteed happy state. If you can
This,
access it, it is. Yeah,
this is fantastic.
it is a pretty guaranteed happy state.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great, keep noticing yourself coming in and out of wonder.
Yeah.
And what states don't seem compatible with it.
Yeah.
That can be a little bit of a inquiry. What states of mind don't seem to be compatible
Those
with
are
wonder?
those are very loud and clear for me.
Good. Can you
Oh,
name
I
them?
was running from them this week. Worry, panic, stress,
Okay. Yes.
anger, just all of that, where I would rather be in a state of wonderment any day or
Yes.
meditative. And
Yeah.
it makes it harder, I think, sometimes to have the motivation to engage in things that provoke those emotions.
Mm. Mm. I mean, part of the skill is as you become more skillful with states of mind, it may be possible that you could engage with the same thing without the worry and fret.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That
That
I
that you
feel like
kind of break
that's
the
a
belief that
big.
this situation requires me to feel this way.
Yeah.
There's a gap there. It might be almost, impossible to see, but there's just a little gap between the situation and what the response is. And if you can begin to notice the response, the state of mind that meets these, there may come a moment when that situation comes up and you don't respond that way. And I'll give you an example, which I think I've probably used many times in this class, is, I had this moment of clarity around a pipe breaking under my sink. And it was like suddenly there was water just like flowing out onto the floor. And there's this panic. And what am I going to do about this? And I had been kind of training in this phrase called "there's nothing wrong here" that I sometimes offer to people. And just kind of spontaneously, this phrase "there's nothing wrong here" came to me, and something just relaxed. And I did what I had to do anyway, which is run down to the basement and turn off the main water valve and then call the plumber, you know. But it was really clear to me that that reaction was optional. Nothing actually required that I panic. It was required that I act really quickly because obviously there's some consequences to that amount of water kind of coming out over your floor. You don't want everything to get wet and start to rot and, But it's actually fairly simple if, you can meet certain things with a way of, there's nothing wrong here. Things go wrong and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Things get all messed up and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's nothing wrong with that because it happens all the time and it can't be avoided, right? There's nothing
Yes.
wrong there.
Yeah.
And I realized there's like this part of me that thinks he's supposed to be in control of everything, that gets all upset when something happens that I didn't expect and that I immediately have to deal with. There's this sense of fear about that. There's a sense of shame. Like, I mean, this is completely irrational, but it's sort of like there's some part of me that thinks like this wouldn't have happened if I'd been on my game.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because who would know that this pipe is going to come unhooked under your sink and start, spewing water. So, yeah, so that's really powerful if you can begin to see that you don't have to respond with worry and fret. Now, there's only a margin of freedom there. I don't want to create this belief that you're just going to like suddenly be able to turn this around. It's not very likely. But if you just know there's a gap between my reaction and what's actually happening, and if I can actually increase that a little bit, I might not have to react that way. And I think that's a lot of what keeps me meditating every day, is because I actually think that meditation widens that gap just automatically. It just makes the mind a bit less reactive. And I've had enough feedback from other people who have meditated that this is true, that there's something about meditating every day and getting the mind to really settle that then makes the rest of the day go more smoothly. And it creates this greater sense of I can respond in the way that actually makes sense.
I need that.
All right.
I'm a sapling seedling.
You are.
I'm working hard at it.
You're working hard and you're doing the first step, which is notice mind states. Notice how they arise and notice how some have a heaviness to them. They're suffering and others don't. Yeah. And then as you start to notice mind states, that gap you may have a moment when you just realize, oh, I don't have to respond that way. And tell us about it. Because everybody will be cheering.
That will be
true.
Incredible. Thank you.
All right.
Very much.
You're welcome. Okay. So let's see. Richie and then Chad.
Well, when you're talking about the, engineered environment and the arts and all how incredible that is, that had it hit me one day as I was driving down the road and realized as I was going under under an overpass on the highway that that didn't just happen, that somebody had to really figure out exactly how the landscape, the elevations and all, and just get that exactly. And it really changed my perception of, things don't just happen. It was a quote of a dear friend of mine who's long passed, and that line has always stuck with me. And I had a moment the other day, and I was making breakfast, Yeah, I feel like I've been under, and I think a lot of us have been under a lot of stress and I just feel like I can't possibly keep up with all the input that there is. And here I am trying to make breakfast and I put something in the microwave and I have an aversion to technology anyway, and microwaves are things I really would rather live without. But I put it in the microwave and I press the button, and I know that, in a matter of a few seconds, this thing will be done, will be cooked, will be heated. And I thought, that's incredible, and there's so much that we take for granted. For example, that we're all here in cyberspace together, that you have
Yeah.
this microphone in front of you that picks up the sound so that we can all hear it. We could go, and be in um, communication in real time with someone around the world, and we just take that for granted now. And we live in an environment where, I mean, the lights are on in this room. There shouldn't be lights on. That's by, nature. We would be sitting in the dark. And there's so much technology in our lives that we're absolutely blinded to how each piece of technology in itself is wondrous. There's so much, there's so many steps through history that help develop all of this technology, and we just take it for granted, and then we rush through our lives, um, and try to do more and more, and we're less and less able to um, recognize, step back, and appreciate the wow of how we live. And last night I went out singing to the moon, and there's this fabulous orb in the sky. I mean, it was just incredible. And I was one of these kids who grew up in suburbia where I never saw the moon till I was, in my teens, went to college, went off elsewhere and saw the moon, like a full moon. I thought people made that up, just like rainbows. But they're all around us. And yeah, if we just step back out of the moment and can appreciate them, it, when just the fact that we're alive and that we're talking and that we're still here decades after coming out of the womb, and we've learned this language which is complex and we're talking, it's all holy cow.
Holy cow. It's all mind-boggling. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That was a great discourse.
A lot to
I'll,
unpack.
I'll I'll share you. I'll share with you this little game I played with myself at times, which is to imagine that somebody from the past, like George Washington, suddenly shows up in my life, and I'm supposed to escort George Washington through the world as it is today. And he's like having his mind blown every 2 seconds at what he sees. And we're driving down the road at 60 miles an hour, and he's like gripping the side of the car, terrified. And I it's just a fun game that I play with my mind sometimes. But it's about that. It's about like not missing the wonder of what we have here,
Do you
and
remember
even
that?
what's changed in 200 years.
Do you remember that there was a movie that came out a bunch of years ago about, it was in Africa, and it was about somebody finding, I think, a Coke bottle on on
Yeah.
the ground, and picks up the Coke bottle and is like looking at it. And I had that thought this week as I was wowed by the microwave, thinking, and I think sometimes, if somebody just found landed from Mars and they found this cell phone or whatever, just a Coke bottle, Um, it's like, wow, this thing was designed in such a way you could hold it like this. That in itself, it's all wondrous.
All wondrous.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Thank
you. Let's see, Chad, you are going to talk, and then Kate, I think, is up there. And yeah. All right, Chad, and then Kate.
I hadn't thought of that movie in quite a long time. I think it's The Gods Must Be Crazy. The name.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
I think so. Yeah, good movie. I had unmuted to say something you went on to say, Mark, in response to Lisa, which was I find the biggest value of having a meditation practice, which I don't always do so well. So to have a daily practice, but when I do, I find that the reaction comes more. The reaction is optional, more so. I find that rather than kind of an emotion arises and you're just in the stream of that mind and the dialogue all around that is just whoosh, as opposed to when you sit and you have a practice, you can kind of step outside of the emotion and like you Chris said, creating that space. And I definitely find the value of a daily meditation practices. The more that you do so, the more you're able to step out of the stream of an emotion that arises, a reaction, and just be carried along in it. You can kind of get up on the bank and watch it go by and be a little curious about it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
And you can bring some wonder back into your day.
Exactly. You can choose to turn toward a state of mind that's not there yet, that you know will be good.
Right. And you react, you said react and response. So you can respond better. Like you still say, I better get downstairs and turn the water main off.
Exactly.
It's just
Yeah.
like
It's
this
not
clarity.
passivity. It's not
Right.
passivity.
Right. It's just something happens, and there's the clarity that you can respond rather than react. I think. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Let's see. It was Kate. Yes.
Hi. I'm still in South Carolina. Um,
Well, it's
and
snowing here, Kate.
I've heard it's miserable tonight. That's why John isn't even here. He took 4 hours to go from Boston to our house, which is usually
Oh no.
two
Yeah.
hours. He just got home. Um, yeah, it's pretty nice here. It was like 73 today. Um, I saw, since I've been here, I've seen two of these incredible live oaks that they have here everywhere that has that Spanish moss hanging down on them. And I saw this one at McLeod Plantation, and that they call that the wisdom tree. And then there's a one that's considered the largest tree in this area, which is called the angel oak. And the angel oak has to be from branches that trunks and branches that go out to one side and the other side. It's got to be half a football field. I don't know. I don't know what the measurements are. I could look that up, but and the branches go down, they go into the ground a little bit. It's not they've rooted, but they, the ground is, leaves have fallen, whatever. They look like they go in the ground and come back out. But it just goes on, and it's so big. It's bigger than I just recently saw redwoods, and this is much bigger than that. And they're guessing. So that's unbelievable that exists, that there's something like that. They are guessing. In one case, I heard somebody say 400 to 400, 600 years old. The other case, they said 400. But I thought, not only is that amazing, but that means that tree was there in 1620s. And you know how different life was, like when at the one that's at the McLeod plantation. Well, the angel oak, you know what's named for? It's named for a landowner who had enslaved peoples whose name was Angel.
Mm.
It's not even so the fact that And this other one, it's like you see these little houses, which is where the enslaved people were living, and I don't know. I felt like the age at first was just like how amazingly large this tree is, but the other is to think about the history that this tree has. Who gets 400 years?
Hmm.
This tree has watched. There is George Wash, it's watched all these eras. It just it yeah. Yeah, I already felt complete over awe seeing this tree. And then when I went like 400 years, let's see, 19, 18, 17, 16. To think about that time span was just um, mind-boggling.
All right. I love thinking about that tree. I have a hope someday to see a bristlecone pine. Some of them are 4,000 years old. They don't look like much. I've seen pictures of them. They're kind of scraggly, low to the ground, miserable looking things, but they have survived millennia. It's just amazing.
Some of the olive trees in Palestine are 1,000 years old.
Hmm.
And they're not big. They're not big, and this thing was big and grand.
Yeah.
They're scruffier, but they.
They're still hanging in
If
there.
people let them, they would still be producing olives.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that image. All right. Let's see, who else? They're all wonderful. Okay, Allison.
This isn't exactly a moment of awe, but when we're talking about structures and buildings, I had a chuckle at a moment because I believe the UMass Library was built without calculating the weight of the books and so began to sink. But that in itself is sort of amazing that you would build a library and not calculate the weight of the books. But I think they've got it now,
All right, good. It hasn't fallen over.
It hasn't fallen over. No.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's hilarious. Well, it probably wasn't hilarious to the people who figured that out, realized what they did. All right. Who else? All right. Does that mean you're wanting me to talk? All right. I will give my little discourse.